720p, 1280 by 720. 720p is the lowest resolution you'll still see on monitors today. And honestly, in 2026, it only makes sense if your budget is extremely low. This resolution is also called HD. This resolution became popular in the mid-2000s when HD TVs first started replacing old CRT displays, and back then, it looked great. 720p has 1280 by 720 pixels, which is less than a million pixels total. On very small screens like 19 or 20-inch monitors, it can still look acceptable. Even today in 2026, you can still find 720p displays in the US for around $70 to $120, mostly in budget TVs, security monitors, or ultra-cheap PCs. The problem starts when the screen gets bigger. On a 24-inch monitor, pixel density drops so much that text looks blurry and edges look jagged. You also get very little workspace, so you end up scrolling all the time. The only real advantage is performance. Even integrated graphics can run 720p easily. So if this is only for budget setups, what's the resolution most people actually use? That's 1080p. 1080p, also called Full HD, became the standard around the late 2000s, and it's still the most common resolution in 2026. With 1920 by 1080 pixels, you get over 2 million pixels, which makes everything look much sharper than 720p without needing powerful hardware. On a 24-inch monitor, 1080p sits right in the sweet spot. Text looks clean, videos look sharp, and you don't need scaling. That's why offices, gamers, and home users across the US still use 1080p every day. In 2026, a good 1080p monitor usually costs around $120 to $250, depending on refresh rate and panel type. It's also great for gaming. Mid-range GPUs can push very high frame rates, which makes 1080p perfect for 144 Hz, or even 240 Hz monitors. Smooth motion matters more than extra detail for competitive games. This resolution is best suited for budget users, esports gamers, students, office work, and anyone with mid-range or older PCs who wants good performance without spending too much. But here's something many people realize only after buying a bigger screen. On a 27-inch monitor, 1080p starts looking soft because the pixels are spread out. That's why some people wanted a little more space without jumping to 1440p. And that's where 1200p came in. And before we get into that, if this video is actually helping you understand monitor specs without the usual confusing tech jargon, hit the like button so more people can find it, and subscribe to the channel for more simple tech explainers like this. 1200p, 1920 by 1200. Now, 1200p is one of those resolutions most people don't know about. But once you use it, you understand why office users and programmers love it. It became common in the mid-2000s, especially around 2006 to 2008, when 16 to 10 monitors were popular before TVs pushed everything to 16 to 9. Instead of 1920 by 1080, you get 1920 by 1200, which means extra vertical space thanks to the 16 to 10 aspect ratio. That extra height means less scrolling in documents, code, and web pages, which makes it great for productivity. On a 24-inch monitor, it looks slightly sharper than 1080p, and on a 27-inch monitor, it still looks decent, which is why many business monitors still use it. In 2026, most 1200p monitors cost around $180 to $300, usually aimed at office users, not gamers. It also runs just as easily as 1080p, so you don't need a powerful GPU. So if 1200p gives more space and still runs easily, why didn't everyone upgrade to this? Because the next jump didn't just add space, it added real sharpness. That's where 1440p comes in. And this is where monitors start looking truly crisp. 1440p at 2560 by 1440. 1440p also called QHD, started becoming popular around 2013 to 2015, and by the early 2020s, it became the sweet spot for gamers and enthusiasts. With 2560 by 1440 pixels, you get a big jump in detail compared to 1080p. On a 27-inch monitor, pixel density is high enough that you can't see individual pixels at a normal distance, so text looks clean and games look much more detailed. You also get more screen space, which helps for editing, multitasking, and gaming. That's why a lot of gamers in the US prefer 1440p with high refresh rates. In 2026, good 1440p monitors usually cost around $250 to $450, depending on refresh rate and panel type. The downside is GPU power. You usually need something like an RTX 4070 level card to run modern games smoothly at high settings. But not everyone wants more height and sharpness. Some people want a wider screen instead. That's why ultra-wide monitors became popular, starting with ultra-wide 1080p. Ultra-wide 1080p, 2560 by 1080. Ultra-wide 1080p started appearing in the early 2010s, around 2014, when companies began making 21:9 monitors for movies and immersive gaming. Ultra-wide 1080p keeps the same height as normal 1080p, but stretches the screen into a wider shape. That gives you a more cinematic view, which feels great for movies, racing games, and multitasking with multiple windows open. Most ultra-wide 1080p monitors are around 34 inches, so pixel density drops compared to smaller screens. Videos and games look fine, but text isn't as sharp, and you might notice the difference if you read a lot. The good part is that performance stays easy. GPUs like RTX 4060 or RX 7600 can still run games at high refresh rates without much trouble. In 2026, ultra-wide 1080p monitors usually cost around $220 to $350, making them a good budget ultra-wide option. But once people try ultra-wide, they usually want the same width with better sharpness. That's where the next resolution comes in. Ultra-wide 1440 p 3440 by 1440. Ultra-wide 1440p is where ultra-wide monitors finally stop feeling like a compromise and start feeling premium. This resolution became popular around 2018 to 2019, when high refresh ultra-wide panels started showing up. And in 2026, most 34-inch models cost around $400 to $700, depending on refresh rate and panel type. With 3440 by 1440, you get almost 5 million pixels, which means you keep the cinematic 21:9 width, but also get the sharpness people love from regular 1440p. On a 34-inch curved monitor, pixel density sits around 110 ppi, so text looks crisp, games look detailed, and you don't see individual pixels at normal desk distance. This resolution is amazing for racing sims, flight sims, strategy games, and video editing timelines because the extra width lets you see more without needing multiple monitors. The downside is performance. This pushes way more pixels than normal 1440p. So GPUs like an RTX 4080 or RX 7900X TX are usually needed for high refresh gaming. You can still play on weaker cards, but you'll probably need DLSS or FSR. But even this isn't the sharpest resolution people buy today. 4K 3840 by 2160. 4K monitors started going mainstream around 2015, but high refresh 4K became common after 2021. And in 2026, good 32-inch 4K monitors usually cost $400 to $800. 4K packs 8.3 million pixels, which is 4 times 1080p, and that's why everything looks insanely sharp. On a 32-inch monitor, 4K hits around 140 ppi, which is right around the limit where the human eye stops seeing individual pixels at normal desk distance. Text looks super clean, Photos look realistic, and video editing feels perfect because you can see so much detail. For productivity, 4K is amazing. You can fit multiple windows on one screen, edit high-resolution photos, or work on 4K video without scaling issues if the screen size is right. Gaming, though, is a different story. Running modern games at 4K needs serious hardware. You're usually looking at high-end GPUs if you want high settings and high refresh rates. And if 4K already sounds like a lot of pixels, there's one resolution that pushes things way beyond what most people actually need. That's 8K, the absolute maximum resolution you can buy right now, but also the most impractical for most users. 8K, 7680 by 4320. 8K monitors first appeared around 2019, but even in 2026, they're still rare and expensive, usually costing $1,500 to $3,000 or more. 8K has a crazy 33 million pixels, which is 4 times 4K and 16 times 1080p. On a normal desk monitor, this gives you pixel density way beyond what your eyes can even notice. On a 32-inch screen, everything looks unbelievably sharp, but the problem is that it's actually too sharp for normal use. Without scaling, text becomes tiny, icons look microscopic, and you end up zooming the interface anyway. So a lot of that extra resolution doesn't really help for everyday work. Content is another issue. Most videos, games, and streaming services still top out at 4K, so 8K often runs upscaled instead of native. Performance is also brutal. Even the strongest GPUs struggle with 8K gaming, and most people end up lowering resolution just to get playable frame rates. So now that we've seen every resolution from 720p all the way to 8K, there's one more thing that can completely change how a monitor feels, even if the resolution stays the same, and that's refresh rate versus resolution. The real reason some monitors feel smooth while others feel slow. Refresh rate versus resolution. Refresh rate is how many times your screen updates every second. 60 Hz refreshes 60 times. 144 Hz refreshes 144 times. And 240 Hz feels extremely smooth because each frame stays on screen for less time. Higher refresh rates reduce motion blur and make movement look clearer, especially in fast games. That's why competitive players often choose 1080p at 240 Hz instead of 4K at 60 Hz. Lower resolution is easier for the GPU to run, so you get higher FPS, quicker response, and smoother motion. In shooters, that smoothness helps more than extra detail. But what if you don't play esports and care more about how games look? Then the resolution matters more. 1440p or 4K looks far sharper, even at lower refresh rates. Most people find 1440p at around 144 Hz the perfect balance. Sharp, smooth, and not too hard to run. So, with all these options, what should you actually buy in 2026? Let's break it down by budget so you don't waste money on the wrong monitor. What you should buy in 2026. If you're on a budget, the best choice is still a 24-inch 1080p, 144 Hz IPS monitor. It's cheap, smooth, and easy to run on mid-range GPUs, perfect for everyday use, esports, and general work. But if you want the best balance of sharpness and performance, this is where most enthusiasts go. A 27-inch 1440p 165 Hz monitor is the sweet spot in 2026. It looks sharp, runs well on mid to high GPUs, and works great for gaming, work, and content. This is the safest choice for most people. Want something more immersive? Ultrawide 1440p is perfect for sims, movies, and multitasking, but you need a strong GPU. For creators, 4K 32-inch is amazing for editing and productivity, and 8K, still overkill for almost everyone right now. The rule is simple. Match your monitor to your GPU, not just the specs on the box. So, what resolution are you using right now, and what size monitor do you think is perfect? Comment below. And hey, If you're not watching this on a 200-inch 16K monitor from the future, hit subscribe right now. You can watch our laptop CPUs explain video next, or check out the video YouTube thinks you'll love.